Hi, all. Jonathan Lee here, founder and CEO of Perfect SME, the company that created and owns ImplementERP.ai. Our online application, by that same name, is the very best for managing any type of ERP project, from gathering requirements and selecting a system to implementations and the post go live system optimizations. And many people and companies think of implementations only when it comes to project management methods and project management tools. But as a part of our educational series on ERP, we're here to tell you how important that PM element is for any and every phase of that ERP lifecycle. A little bit about us. We're a young startup that is fanatical about supporting companies going through technology transitions or full technology transformations. Our mission is for enterprises to love their technology, not loathe or fear them. As for me, I'm a 30-year professional that's worked in this space for technology firms, consulting firms, and within industry as an end client. So I bring that balanced perspective to anything I do and any technology we develop. Let's quickly recap on the ERP lifecycle. Again, most companies only think about the implementation phase as it relates to PM tools and PM methodologies. Sometimes folks forget that every phase needs to have the PM element embedded within. For example, let's say you're here. You have absolutely determined that you need a new system. You don't have a PM for the requirements gathering. You walk around with spreadsheets and clipboards, collect information. And by doing that, you select the wrong system. When that happens, you have a painful implementation because you're trying to meet requirements from a system that was not well designed for your particular company and your specific needs. So even after a long, painful, and costly implementation that basically just gets you the base set of requirements, you have years of go live optimization steps and waves where you're trying to catch up, all because you did not select the right system. On the other hand, let's say you're here and you believe that you need to jump to the requirement stage and you don't go through any optimization phases because you don't truly understand the functionality of your system. Well, then you're going to go through all of these three cycles when perhaps you could have made the system better just by optimizing what you have in place. Let's talk about the use case in which the question is asked: what PM methodology do we need? What are the PM tools or tool that we should be considering? And do we even need a PM structure at all? If a company is asking the question, what phase or stage are we in? To us, that's a huge sign that you need the PM structure. A lot of companies make that determination outside of the construct of a project management framework. And then later, when they're implementing, they find challenges. And we'll show you why that is in a second. Another situation is if a company is asking what the targets can be and should be. And of course, this depends on what phase they decide they're in. The targets for a small optimization phase is vastly different from the targets, which are bigger, broader, and more numerous when it comes to a brand new system that's going to be multiple years, in the making. The third one is the denominator piece. So you take the first two above, then you essentially divide it by the skill sets, the bandwidth, constraints, and other factors that keep a company from adding as many resources as they maybe would like. But then that's what sets the stuff like timelines and need for external resourcing. And then the last one is the obvious one. If a company is asking what tools should be using, then that is where maybe a feedback response back to them is, do you even know what methodology you will be utilizing, not just which tools you need. Let's take that use case and apply it to real life. We're going to use a very common, very typical ERP program That's still very common today, but certainly was popular over the last 10 years. So for mid-sized companies, you're looking at about a 5-year timeline for a single major implementation and then a single major optimization. Now, companies are smart. They know that you shouldn't be endeavoring on such a big project without a structure in place. So before the implementation launches, they build out a project management structure that includes methodologies and tools. In reality, they may start to build the PM out before the kickoff of the implementation, but for the majority of companies, the PM build out is neither as simple or as quick as they thought. So that is being built out as the implementation has already kicked off. Now, this disguises yet a bigger problem, and that is that the requirements and the selection project, which occurred before the PM structure was even a thought, uh, was done with maybe a little bit of project management support. One of the leaders put in a few hours to make sure that people were doing what they needed to do to get this project done. But it was done outside the confine of what would be the project management structure. We're going to talk about why that's such a big problem in a second. But even with the project management structure being built out at the early portion of the implementation stage itself, there's usually a period of time where compliance drops off and people aren't doing the task updating the way they should. And then they kind of get in line and they hold status meetings. And then there's another period where the weekly status meetings start to really fall off, and they're constantly either postponed or just canceled. And then when the go live period starts to near, people get more regimented again, and then they start updating tasks and doing all of those project management and admin steps. Now, notice from requirement selection to implementation, this is a different work stream. What does that mean? It means this was not done with the full expectation that it would be fully leveraged for the implementation. And when the implementation is done, there isn't a deep planning for the full leveraging of their discovery findings and any other data into the optimization. Now, you may think that couldn't possibly be the case, but we'll show you. ERP.ai works completely differently. It's designed very specifically for ERP, and as such, it encapsulates all the needs of the entire ERP lifecycle, and it really doesn't allow you to waste effort. So here's what we mean. First of all, we start off making sure that you understand the tool is designed to manage the entire lifecycle. So every phase. So instead of PM being a little floating layer on top of a project, like you just saw in the previous slide, any ERP activity or project is merely a component of the ERP lifecycle management tool. So in other words, we don't go around filling out a spreadsheet collecting needs from people on whether the current system works well or not. And that data being just in a random list, it's hard to use. We have a very specific structure by which the company will be determining whether the current system will make it or they're going to have to move on to a new system. That same data, all the analysis that was done in the scoping exercise, doesn't get duplicated, doesn't get copied or moved. It just naturally flows and is used for the requirements gathering and system selection phase. So when this is done, the intention is that all the knowledge, findings, and analysis gets utilized for the implementation itself. Now, how is this different from the common model today? Well, today, the design of the implementation, of the system starts here. In our model, when you're doing the demos with all the various vendors, and you'll find that no system is perfect for you, but several are pretty good for you, and some are just flat out the wrong fit. But of the ones that are a pretty good fit, you start thinking already about what it is you're going to have to personalize, configure, build out, add modules for, build integrations into, so that it becomes a perfect system for you. Well, since you've done that here while the company was doing the demos, you already know what you're going to be doing from an extra design effort, from an extra configuration effort in the implementation. So you cut out a lot of that 30 to 60 to 90 days that is designated for design, and you get going much more quickly. Now, when you're done with the implementation, you take a break and you move into the optimization phase one. Again, you're not moving or copying anything. You simply roll all of the information that you have forward into an optimization wave. Take a break, do that again. So to add a little bit of detail, we know at the end of the first major implementation, you did not tap into all the functionality that exists in the system. Due to budget or time constraints or people just wanting to be done with the project, they leave certain needs on the table. Data analytics is a very commonly left on the table item. But those things that are left on the table, because the tracking of what's completed, what's not, is naturally done in the tool during the implementation, that becomes the parking lot from which the optimization phase one activities can be based. You knock off a lot of those parking lot items in the phase one of optimizations, take a break, and the remaining items are what you would go after in optimization phase two. And now for the side by side. In the traditional model, again, you have the project management and project management structure as a floating layer separate and on top of the implementation activities. They're probably using a ton of other tools too. They're probably using Slack, ClickUp, Smartsheet, SharePoint, and the worst culprit of all, email. They're sending information back and forth in thousands and tens of thousands of emails. Very hard to track a project using those kinds of tools, especially when there's so many tools. And to reiterate that point, this work stream is not aligned with this major work stream, is not aligned with this follow-on work stream. The synopsis of our method, the PM tool already built specifically for ERP life cycles contains all the structure, all the methodologies, and all the tooling for you to do your scoping, make your decisions, gather your requirements, select your system, leverage that to move forward on the implementation, and then perform your optimization waves as follow-ons to parking lot items, that are already just captured here. And not just that, you ended up getting way more features, way more functionality, much more using our method with, get this, far fewer hours and a lot less overall cost. Without all of the waste in the consulting efforts, your employees' time to get a better design, to get a better product, well, that's unheard of. And if you just take a quick glimpse in our model versus the traditional, you're only able to do one optimization wave, and you'll probably follow it with at least 4 more. In our model, in the same timeline with less cost, less effort, less hours, you're probably able to capture 2, and you may be done with all your parking lot items in this duration. It's just a different world. Now let's talk about what tools are used in that traditional model for scoping, for task management, and for PM tracking. You notice they all look the same, especially for task management. So they put in a task here, they use some sort of indexing, perhaps a description, a rating, a prioritization, a phase, or something else that allows you to group start dates, end dates, owners, and you might have like a status column or a couple of other things here. Bottom line is When you look at this tool, does it give you the confidence to be able to declare that a process is ready? Does this tell you that a process would be ready, like, for example, order to cash, except there's a couple of sub-processes that are not supported by the system, and then it tells you which specific screens have not been designed or haven't been tested, what it is that's causing the process to be declared ready? No, you would never get that from something that looks like a spreadsheet. And it's not just a spreadsheet, but even the online tools, they look pretty, but under the covers, it's a spreadsheet. So let us show you how our tool works. How does ImplementERP.ai help you scope your ERP need? It works for any phase of your ERP lifecycle, but let's talk about an evaluation of your current system. First of all, note no spreadsheets, no consultant running around on a Word document or an Excel file collecting words that don't go anywhere and don't have context. We used the very beloved and effective enterprise architecture model. And you don't have to be a process mapping guru, not at all. We have them pre-built in the tool. So starting from record to report, so for the accounting and financial teams that need to generate analysis or financial statements, quote to cash, the one that involves numerous functions usually, but puts the company in a position to generate a quote to a prospect or a customer. And then once that customer agrees to the quote, it then converts into an order. Design to refine, which is the process by which an engineering team creates a new item, creates revisions to an existing item, etc. Order to cash is a subset of the quote to cash following the quotation portion at the beginning, where you schedule an order, produce the order, ship the order, and invoice for it. We're going to use the procurement process just because this one's a little bit more built out. And again, this is pre-built into our library, but the procure to pay process, and you can change the name anytime you want to, contains these numerous sub-processes. What are they? Well, first you gotta know that you need a material or item or labor or anything else. You need to be able to generate a requisition, select items and vendors, create a PO, issue that PO, and these days EDI and API are so common, right? You need to update the PO, so mechanism for that, receive the item or the material in, and then do the three-way matching and then the payment. And there could be, like I said, more sub-processes. You simply add one in and it comes into place. And like I said earlier, you can reorder them. And obviously, I don't want to because these are in the right place as they currently are placed. So notice underneath the process and the sub-process, it lists out all the screens. In this case, in Infor Cloud Suite, the forms, that's the word they use for screens, that are required to enable that sub-process. So identified demand has 4. Preparing a request has 2. Selecting an item and vendor has 4. And this is a cleansed sample, so please don't take this literally. I just want you to understand the point. But notice all of the screens seem to be ready to go except for the item one, no green check mark. Why? So you take a look and you say, okay, were there any notes here? And you can enter notes here. Are there attachments with screenshots, renderings, scripts? And oftentimes there are. You'll really want to use that functionality. Are there any integrations that are necessary? Okay, well, here's reason one why that screen is declared not ready. But also, someone who reviewed this already said you need to add a field and you need to add a permission. That's what we need to do to make that screen more optimized to be declared ready to go. Okay? Notice it states who the requester was, me, and when that request was created. And it's going to automatically take those items and load it into a design, build, and test section. Now, why is that? Because once I've identified what the needs are, someone has to go and create a design for it. Okay. And that's what these tasks are for. So someone can be the owner, mark it as complete, etc. And same thing, once that design is approved, they're going to build those changes. They're going to insert using some sort of a configurator tool. They're going to build that field in. They're going to add a permission and backend table, uh, owner for that task, due dates, etc. So these tasks, which be very, very hard to track on a spreadsheet that has 4,000 other tasks, by providing them here, and there's a little bit more here at the bottom, we're going to cover in a different video, but by capturing those against and under the items label for which form, using Infor lingo, needs to be optimized or isn't working, we know why this subprocess is deemed not ready. And this subprocess being deemed not ready means this overall process isn't quite ready, all because of that one screen. So just from a magnitude perspective, you're seeing that, guy, the system as it relates to procure to pay looks pretty darn good. I mean, all the screens are working. We just need to optimize this one, and then we'll be good to go on procure to pay. This is mechanical, factual, objective, and you can roll up or down from a detailed problems to what process is being affected. Something a spreadsheet absolutely cannot do. Even the really pretty ones online that have beautiful dashboards and all that, but really is just nothing more than a spreadsheet under the cover. Next, we're going to move on to performance tracking. The project task tracking, which is based off of the project management tasks that you saw in an earlier slide, looks exactly the same. Has the various columns with the items mostly and most commonly being the tasks, an index number, description, again, a phase, rating, prioritization, start date, end date, and owner. Performance monitoring is based off of the same thing. All of that, what you see as the project performance, is based off of the spreadsheets, which is hugely problematic because we've already gone over the fact that this task doesn't really tell you that a process is ready, doesn't tell you that a sub-process within a process is the reason why the process overall isn't ready. It doesn't tell you that a system screen, so using that same example as before, the item screen isn't ready. Therefore, the demand portion of procure to pay isn't ready, which means procure to pay itself is not quite ready. You can have pretty dashboards and charts like this, but this also doesn't give you that kind of information. All this does is just give you a regurgitated view of the tasks. And that's why we believe this is a very flawed model, and something that's specifically built out for ERP is far superior. So let's go back and take a look at how our tool, ImplementERP.ai, shows you how a project is going. We'll start here again because you are now acclimated with our processes page. But once you and your team fill out the information and manage tasks where they should be managed within the context of the screens that are mapped to a sub-process and roll up to a process, the great thing is the project manager really gets the benefit from that. So now, without emails, without calls, they can quickly track stuff like which forms haven't been started yet. Oh, look at all these forms, screens in the system that haven't even been reviewed yet. Wow. Also, let's take a look at which ones were started but are late. Okay, but it's more than that. These three lates specifically roll up to the item screen or form, the rec screen or form, the item screen, right? And that's causing you to not be able to declare the procure to pay ready or to quote to cash. And more specifically, The CPQ sub-process within quote to cash is what's being held up by the fact that the items form is not ready. There's so much more here. You can track it by owner. And again, this is a great way of seeing, oh, perhaps the tasks and the form isn't being moved forward on because I haven't assigned a permanent owner. Oh, I better go and do that. And you can do that as a PM by moving this slide to edit, then doing changes en masse. But you can see if the scripts are done. You can see where the current phase is for that particular screen. There's so much more here, including integrations. So it's a great way for the PM to take a look at where things are and how things are going. And then the meetings and then the conversations can happen because at this point it's warranted. If John Lee, me, hasn't started a customer order, then you can very poignantly ask him, why haven't you started? And you already have all the facts. So maybe his explanation is that he had another project come up, so he's behind by a week. But see how meaningful that conversation is. Instead of an email that goes out to him that says, hey, where are you at with the customer order form? How are we doing with the create order sub process? I won't belabor the point, but you get what I mean. And finally, there's an executive view here. So for people who are used to charts that really don't tell you much, this is how our dashboard works. First of all, we only have 2 columns. And the second one is a favored one by many executives because they're allowed to see stuff like, hey, are we ready with our financial reporting processes? Is the system able to handle that? Or in the case of a system assessment, how far away is our system from being able to properly handle our financial reporting? Quote to cash, how much of it is done or how much of it is lacking? Order to cash, procure to pay. So it gives you that process view that none of the other generic project management tools do, and certainly not a spreadsheet. Here on this side, you can see if the integrations are not complete, but you can also see how many there are, the additional requirements, if there are some form design activities that are outstanding, form build activities. So again, this will help you out from the requirements gathering phase to the system selection phase to the implementation and then with the optimization. And we have plenty of other videos that show how that works, but we'd also love to have a conversation with you about how this tool can really help you. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Please send in your questions or requests to info@ImplementERP.ai. And to learn a little bit more about our tool and all these embedded methodologies, please visit us at ImplementERP.ai. Thank you for your time.